Hi, I'm Mark Little. Do you remember hearing a few months ago about the 3 meeting process and the 10 client deliverables? I mean, it wasn't like, do you remember where you were when humans first landed on the moon? Nothing like that. But I'm talking about just a little buzz about a couple of cool tools for financial advisors called the 10 client deliverables and the 3 meeting process. Well, it seems like to me, overnight, I began hearing financial advisors talking about these two tools. You know, you're minding your own business, and it seems like everywhere you turn around, you're hearing somebody mention these things. Well, if you ask them, what they'll tell you is that they used my formula to implement these two tools. I created these tools, and I literally invented the process of how to implement them. Okay, so great. So what does this have to do with you? You know, it's no secret that million-dollar producers can implement tools like this: increased client deliverables, fully comprehensive financial services, blah, blah, blah. You hear about these million-dollar producers at these conferences all the time implementing all these cool services for their clients. I bet you're sick about hearing what million-dollar producers are able to do. They have more resources, they have more staff. So basically, let's forget about all the hype. Let's forget about the million-dollar producers and just, focus for a minute on what's possible. Okay, let's just look at a regular guy financial advisor who's trying to implement higher level services. And to do that through a launch of services. I mean, you've been in the business for a while. At some point, it occurs to you you'd like to offer even more comprehensive financial services than you're currently offering. So let's go to it. A regular guy financial advisor. So who's this regular guy? Well, this regular guy is actually a woman named Kate Wilson. It's going to be a case study about Kate. Kate's actually not a real financial advisor. I've had to change Kate's name to kind of protect her identity. But if you get the full case study from me at no charge, I'm going to tell you at the end of the case study exactly who Kate is. And guess what? You're going to know who Kate is when you get to the end of this story. You'll know Kate. You'll know who this individual is. But nevertheless, let me kind of give you the profile of Kate. She's making, decent income, $100,000, a little more than that. She's on the way to fully implementing the 10 client deliverables and the 3 meeting process after it was introduced to her. And basically, the practices that are changing people's lives by implementing more for clients are these regular guy financial advisory practices. I'm a big proponent of financial advisors who are seeking to offer even more comprehensive financial services for their clients, just because I've seen with my own eyes, because I'm a financial advisor, the difference it makes in people's lives. These regular financial advisors who are trying to improve their practice to make a difference in people's lives are literally changing lives. They're offering more fully comprehensive financial services, and as a result, they're creating the greatest probability that clients are going to actually accomplish their goals. In addition to that, they're helping clients make smart choices about their money, because all through the year, clients are faced with dilemmas regarding their finances that they need good advice to make smart choices. And then finally, these regular guy financial advisors who are continually trying to improve the services they're offering are becoming over time continually more proactive, so that from a client perspective, no opportunities are missed. And I think important to many clients is this idea that the process is so proactive that there are no surprises, so that things don't blow up in a client's financial situation, that it's well thought through. It's very thoughtful. So let's talk about Kate. Poor Kate. Before she heard anything about the 10 client deliverables, before she heard anything about this tool called the 3 meeting process, she was a very hard worker. I don't want you to get the idea in any case that Kate was a slacker. I spent a few hours on the phone with her some weeks ago, and I really got an update on the whole story. And I'm going to walk you through her full case study. I'm going to reveal her identity in the final segment, the final day of the series, so you're all going to know who she is. But it took Kate about a year to fully implement the 10 client deliverables and the 3-meeting process. But as I said, prior to knowing anything about these tools, she was a very hard worker. She worked with her clients, spent about 80, 90 hours a week. More than half of that time was in client acquisition. She was trying to find new clients, and a little less than half of that time was spent trying to serve her existing clients, although she didn't have a real process for doing it. All she knew was she was a hard worker. She's very sharp, too. She was supporting her family, so it was really important that she continue growing her firm. And she did have a very small office staff, couple people, but she did most of the client work herself. I mean, in the end, she was the service that her clients were buying from her firm. So she had what I call a hope enterprise at that point. Before she knew anything about the 10 client deliverables, increased financial offerings to her clients, and the 3-meeting process to organize all this, she basically had this hope enterprise. She did have a growing number of ideal clients. She worked with corporate types, so her basic ideal client profile was a corporate executive. Her parents were corporate types. She had actually worked for a corporation for a number of years, so she came from that world, and she knew about these folks. She really identified with them, and I think the key to the whole thing, and one of the lessons to learn about Kate was that she was passionate about working with them, and she had a high level of confidence that she could help them. So she started off like a lot of other financial advisors, but it was still a hope enterprise. She was winging it in many ways. She did everything herself. She had very little in the way of processes, and her staff just sort of tried to read her mind to figure out how they could help her. I mean, it was a situation that really could use a lot of organization. And really, what that means is she made big commitments at the beginning of the relationship, and then she hoped she could deliver on everything that she had promised to her clients in those initial client interviews when she first sat down with them. So basically, we're going to get rid of the hope enterprise. And I think what you're going to love about Kate's story is how she basically stopped hoping that she could deliver on everything and actually started delivering. The problem with a hope enterprise is pretty obvious. It almost never works. So many financial advisors have tried this sort of one-man band approach where you try to do all things in your firm for your clients and delegating very few things, and you only get basically the only thing that happens is you literally get worn out somewhere along the way. You're like Kate; she was putting in 80, 90 hours a week. Advisors like this try to do everything themselves, but in the end, even if they can impress their clients, which is not common, it's really rare because you're doing so much for clients. It's easy it's hard to keep up the quality, and little sloppy things tend to work their way in that clients notice. But even if you were able to impress every client, you're literally on the path to burning out. I mean, this is a straight and narrow path to getting out of the business being miserable at some point. So, and Kate was at the point of burnout when she encountered the 10 client deliverables in the 3-meeting process. So it was a really good point in her career to come across these tools of mine because it literally changed everything for her. So she was about to leave the business, and she was considering whether or not she really even wanted to implement these 2 tools because she thought in her mind it was not going to be easy. She thought this is going to be hard work, and but she was intrigued by, the 10 client deliverables, which in essence is a new and it's a more organized checklist-driven set of services, so easier to implement. And this improved 3-meeting process, which is an annual client meeting sequence to deliver these new and even more comprehensive services. So it did intrigue her a bit, but she had tried before to expand her services on her own. She had read up a lot of the industry publications on services that were being offered out there in the industry, and she'd literally busted her butt to try to get some of this implemented. And so the reason she was weighing whether to move forward with these tools of mine, implementing this new model for her practice, it was a big toss-up in her mind because she had tried this on her own before. And what had happened was that it slowed down her client acquisition activities. That the fact that she was trying to implement new services just basically became a big distraction, a bright, shiny object that took her eye off the ball of client acquisition, and candidly, her revenue slowed down. So it's really hard to imagine what it was like for Kate back then. On top of everything, she did make good money, but not all of the time. It was a little bit spotty for her. She made over $100,000 a year, but not every month. And there were some very lean months for Kate. And money was frequently an issue for her. So I know what my spouse would have been advising me in this kind of unpleasant situation. But the cool thing is that Kate did not just give up on the situation. She had someone in her life who recommended that she go not only check out the 10 client deliverables and the 3 meeting process, but that she had faith in her that she could implement it and make it work. And it was easier than what she had tried to do on her own. So now let me pause here for a minute before you go thinking that this is going to be some big pitch by me for some big practice management coaching program or something like that. Just relax, settle down, and trust me, you cannot even buy these kind of services. I don't make that kind of coaching available to financial advisors, and I don't have any coaching program on the market. But at that time, back when Kate was implementing this, some coaching was available, and Kate scraped together some money to take advantage of it. And that was just not an easy situation for her because she had some very lean months, but she made it work. So Kate was awesome. She started implementing immediately, and the results were amazing. She started her high-level services product launch in the first 30 days. She began implementing the 10 client deliverables, and within the first month, she implemented the first 5. And that is the plan, to get the 5 of the 10 deliverables in place in a very simple process over the first 30 days. And the 3-meeting process is easy to begin implementing right away, like within the first week. So she began implementing a meeting immediately, and the results were amazing. The very first thing she did was, at my recommendation, was to begin to delegate most of her client deliverables. Her assistant did much of the work, and this is where the story really, really does, I think, get interesting. She began focusing on not on all of her clients, because she had some number of clients, but the problem is she had a very small number of what came to be known as ideal clients. So, the first thing she did was identify her ideal clients. She began outsourcing as much as she could, and this is where I recommend that you outsource for literally everything. The only thing that she didn't outsource, and the thing that I recommend that you never outsource, obviously, is the client interaction. So the idea of sitting down face-to-face with a client and delivering comprehensive financial services, that's your role as a financial advisor, as you'll see in this case study. And she came up with a realistic plan to deal with the many, many clients that she had who paid her very little, or in many cases, nothing each year. But at the same time, she felt an obligation to them. I mean, when she started her career, these people were very loyal to her. She didn't look at it as their fault that they couldn't afford to hire a now more fully comprehensive advisor, but she did come up with a realistic plan to deal with them. And that's part of the case study, and we'll talk about that. And she basically became focused on delivering on the promises that she made at the initial client interviews that she had with these ideal clients, and offered these services at a very high level to those who fit her ideal client profile. So she began immediately focusing intensely on her small number of ideal clients. And for the first time ever, she structured her calendar around her most important priorities. She had an accountability coach who told her to structure her time a third of the week to spend acquiring ideal clients, because she had to keep growing her business, and advised her to spend 15 hours a week, or a third of her week, meeting with existing ideal clients, delivering on the promises that she made at the inception of the relationship, and to spend the final third of her week implementing the the 10 client deliverables, and the 3 meeting process. So she had wondered how, she was going to find time to implement these new tools, and her accountability coach gave her the advice on exactly how to do that. Now, I said 15, I slipped a minute ago and I said 15 hours. That is a very interesting part of this story. Keep in mind, she had been putting in 80, 90 hours a week. She was contemplating leaving the business. Her spouse had it up to here with not seeing much of Kate. So what she decided to try, and it was really a risky try, but at the encouragement of her accountability coach, she dropped her hours from 80 to 90 hours a week. She cut them in half. She said, I'm going to just work 45 hours a week. And this was the first time in years she'd put in somewhat normal hours. So that's where the third of her week became 15 hours a week at acquiring ideal clients by referral only. 15 hours a week, which is a third of her week, meeting with existing ideal clients, delivering on the promise, and then 15 hours a week implementing these new tools that I gave her, the 10 client deliverables and the 3 meeting process. What that meant was she took her first few days off work in years immediately. I mean, she was staying home weekends right away. And this was something her husband just literally loved about this new plan. The question was, would it work? So how did it work out for Kate? Well, let me just kind of go through it with you. Basically, she implemented the new client deliverables every single month. So in the first year, every month there were some new deliverables that came on board until she had all 10 implemented. She immediately began documenting her processes as I outlined for her to do. And what happened was she was able to raise her fees. Things were running smoother. She was offering more services, and her fees were very deserving of going up. By the end of the year, she was taking 2 weeks off every quarter. Her family really loved this new plan. And in the end of the day, she was delegating all of her major client services to her team. And whereas before she was a one-man band, she was doing literally everything. So the practice had been running her, and she stopped being a one-man band. Basically, we've seen top producers implement the 10 client deliverables and the 3 meeting process well, and I'm not insulting or dissing $1 million top producers in any way whatsoever. But this is the thing that most people miss. I think people miss this point. Every advisor comes at this from a different starting point. It's not about how much money you make. It's not about being $1 million producer. Matter of fact, I believe this works even better for financial advisors who are one-man bands. Advisors at the higher end tend to delegate more. They have more staff. They have more money and resources. Advisors who are making $100,000 a year or even less are tending to do it all. This idea of going from being a one-man band to an orchestra conductor is very appealing to a one-man band, and I think the results come quicker there. And the reason I think it works better for, the $100,000 to $400,000 a year advisor as opposed to the $1 million producers, which obviously this is going to work for them, is because by outsourcing and delegating these two tools, the 10 client deliverables and the 3 meeting process, more time is created for these advisors who are doing it all. And the improvement is felt almost immediately, certainly within the first 30 days. Let's look at the report card for Kate. Before she came across these two tools, she was making good income, 6 figures. She had 2 client deliverables in place. Basically, she was managing money, and she did an asset allocation for every client. And she didn't do what I would call financial planning, but she did talk to clients about goals. But her services basically was a discussion about goals and some asset allocation and money management. That was her 2 deliverables. She had 1 documented process in her whole firm that was written down, and she worked 80 to 90 hours a week. Hated her job. Really hated the business. So let's look at afterwards. She increased her production in the first year double. She doubled her production in a year. She had 10 client deliverables, fully comprehensive service by the end of that year, which is part of why she was driving her fees up and able to double her production. Everything at the end of the year was fully documented, at least all the major processes, certainly every process involving where a client would touch her firm. So where clients were involved, every process was documented, from answering the phones to when a client walks in the office, it looks the same every time because there's a checklist to make sure of it. She took 2 weeks off every quarter, and that was one of the big goals for her, and that was after a year's time. She had that in place, and in essence, she had really calmed down in her hatred of the business. She loved the business. She was still kind of coming down off the years and years of dislike of the business at the end of that year. But at the same time, she had created so much calm in her business that she began the process of kind of falling in love with what she was doing again, mainly because she was making such a big difference for her client. Her clients definitely were seeing the impact of these greater services. So I think one of the real key points here is the increased confidence and the increased level of belief that you'll have by having the real deal, by offering truly comprehensive financial services. Imagine somebody comes up to you and says, so what do you do for a living? And rather than saying I'm a wealth manager, which what a joke that term is, but, or a financial advisor, financial planner, whatever you say. I mean, you're able to describe best in class, fully comprehensive financial services so that your client's financial house is totally in order. And basically, I am of the opinion, I think it's harder for $1 million producer to increase their confidence because they already have such a high level of confidence. I'm, again, not insulting $1 million producers in any way, and I'll tell you why in a minute, but I think for a $100,000 to $400,000 advisor, offering fully comprehensive financial services represents a huge boost in confidence. Imagine this. Like in Kate's case, she's offering basically money management and a conversation about goals. Well, now she's offering a full financial planning, full money management on all the assets of the client, tax advice, insurance, looking at every kind of insurance that exists and telling clients exactly the kind they need or don't need based on their situation and the gaps that they see there. And estate planning. This is a huge boost in confidence for Kate to be able to offer all of these services in every major area of finance. Going from a one-man band to the best in class in your community is a huge confidence boost. And my only point about $1 million producers is they already have a high level of confidence. So basically, the first 30 days is the key leading indicator. While it's true that it takes most financial advisors about a year to fully implement the 10 client deliverables and the 3-meeting process, it's really in the first 30 days that you immediately implement the 5, let's call them mini deliverables. One of them in each of the 5 major areas of planning that I just mentioned: financial planning, money management, tax, insurance, and estate planning. Imagine that. In the first 30 days, you implement a key deliverable in each of those 5 areas. And it's also in the first 30 days that the 3-meeting process is introduced first to clients. And so they begin experiencing that right away. Implementing these 2 easy first steps immediately creates time for the advisor. And it's obvious to clients right away that something very cool is happening here. It puts you immediately in a greater alignment with the practice that is very referable by ideal clients. It's so much easier to refer an advisor who is offering full financial services. And in Kate's case, as you'll see in her full case study, it made a huge and immediate impact on her existing clients, who began referring her to potential ideal clients after going over the new deliverables with Kate. So what did she say to her clients as she was trying to make this switch to the new deliverables? Well, the story was very, very easy, and it came from her accountability coach. Basically, her accountability coach told her that you just described to the client that there's an old world and a new world. And so basically, in the old world, you set meetings with your ideal clients. She basically set up meetings. She had very few ideal clients and very few prospective ideal clients, but she did set meetings up with each and every one of them. She described the old world to them. In the old world, I managed your money. I did an asset allocation. We had a nice conversation about your goals. In the new world, I'm going to be making sure that your financial house is in order. I'm going to create the greatest probability that you're going to accomplish your goals because I'm going to have hundreds of deliverables checkpoints backing up 10 client deliverables so that it creates the greatest probability that your plan will unfold for you correctly. And in addition to that, I'm going to make sure that you make smart choices about your money in all areas of finance. And the process is so proactive that nothing's going to fall through the cracks. You're not going to miss any opportunities. And quite the contrary, you're going to find every opportunity that we can find for you financially. And there are not going to be any surprises. Nothing's going to blow up. Very unlikely something blows up that we didn't anticipate. So, that was describing the new world in an outline form to all these small number of ideal clients and potential clients. And then she described the 3-meeting process, whereas in the old days, there really was no frequency that any of her clients could count on as far as when they would see her. I mean, it was a spotty process, and she did the best she could, but in the end, it was not an organized process as to when she would meet with each and every client. So she described this 3-meeting process where the clients would commit to a few short meetings a year with her so that she could get the information that she needed to run the 10 client deliverables for them, get the information she has to get only from them. And basically they had confidence that all of a sudden now, for the first time in all this time of working with her, they would be able to meet with her on a regular frequency. And then, of course, this was all preceded by the fact that she sat down with me and implemented a 30-day step-by-step high-level service launch plan, which she had been dreading for years, but now she saw that in 30 days she would get immediate improvements in her life, and it worked well for her. I think the key to this thing is that, creating a fully functioning, comprehensive financial services practice is literally an amazing accomplishment. But baby steps work great. The idea of trying to do too much like Kate did too soon and shutting down client acquisition efforts as a result is just doesn't work. This case study is going to show you how basically you're tuning a running engine. You've got to keep everything going at once. You've got to keep acquiring new clients and growing. You've got to you've got to spend a third of your time delivering on the promise to your existing clients. And then with a third of your time, in Kate's case, 15 hours a week, you implement these new tools and you just basically draw the line and say, I'm not going to spend any more time than that in the course of the week. But it works really well because, we teach you how to delegate most of that. So you feel the benefit of implementing right away. Every single baby step you feel. And all of a sudden, before you know it, you're delivering the real deal, full comprehensive services through a deliverables team of subject matter experts who are best in class. And of course, that leads to increased referrals. That leads, of course, increased referrals leads to increased revenue. So, the idea that you offer all these services makes you a very referable financial advisor to an ideal client. I not only created all these management tools, but I've implemented them all myself. I can speak with authority on this because I still use these tools to this day with my ideal clients. And as you'll see from Kate's story, there's some takeaways here that I really hope you don't miss when you go through the whole thing. Having a robust back end is really important. It raises your confidence, and your clients know the real deal when they see it. The idea of having best-in-class client deliverables is critical. The fact that the quality of your service can't be matched anywhere in your community, it's unlikely, that there are other advisors that are this clutch in their team is really important. And then the idea of being really fully comprehensive. The front-end methodology that I use in my practice to acquire clients is values-based financial planning. Now, you may have heard of values-based financial planning. It was developed by Bill Bacharach, and to this day is, I think, well, it's the most compelling methodology that's been developed for acquiring ideal clients. It's organized, it's highly compelling to ideal clients, and I swear by it. But make no mistake, whatever your front-end method is, however you acquire ideal clients, whatever method you utilize to get your clients to hire you, my key point is this. If you deliver more on the back end, you can promise more on the front end. And of course, you can charge more too, much more. So, another key to this that I want to point out is whatever your starting point is, whether you're new in the business or whether you already have deliverables that are working really well for you, these two tools, the 10 client deliverables and the 3 meeting process, don't require you to change anything. These tools act like, I like to think of them as a Microsoft operating system that blends in well with what you're already doing, and it just allows you to add even more comprehensive services on top of whatever you're currently doing. It doesn't matter what your niche is. Kate liked to work with corporate folks, but if you work with business owners or medical professionals, doctors, or any other professionals, or my favorite, if you have a geographic niche, like if in your community you are basically seeking ideal clients who live close to you for their convenience because it's easier for them. But whatever your niche is, that doesn't matter either. And whether you're new to the business or well established, these tools are going to be really great for you. You know that feeling when you're on a roll? I mean a real roll? Well, the proper execution of these two tools can really do that for you in your financial advisory practice. In the last almost 25 years that I've been in this business, I've learned a few things. I've learned how to acquire a deliverables team of subject matter experts. I've created tools to organize and lead that team of subject matter experts so that they are offering great service to the client and they're communicating with each other for the benefit of the client, which is usually very unusual. I've learned and created tools on how to document every single process in a financial advisory firm in 20 minutes or less, no matter how complicated the process is. And this is a big barrier to many financial advisors because, even if you have staff, who has time to sit down and document processes? You're too busy doing the work to sit down and get organized. Well, this tool that I've created to help document a process in 20 minutes or less really solves that problem. And I've put together tools on how to fully delegate the preparation for every client meeting. And this is a big time consumer for financial advisors, is just getting prepared for their meetings. So, the key to full service financial advisory is that, it's the pieces of paper you put in front of your ideal clients. Most financial advisors put, believe it or not, even with less deliverables than I'm talking about, put too much in front of clients, too many pieces of paper. And not surprisingly, most of these pieces of paper are not the relevant ones that the client really cares about. So I've put tools together that are very simple, very compelling, exactly the pieces of paper that need to be in front of an affluent ideal client that is really compelling for them and tells them the story of how things are progressing towards their goals. So these are tools that I've created over the last 20 years. But here's the deal. Let me tell you what's happening. I am creating a website, a toolkit, as it were, of all these things that I've created over the last 20 years. And I'm in the process of developing this. And I'm actually hoping that at some point down the line, maybe some of you are going to want to invest in this site that I'm developing. But before I start charging for it, or before I even roll it out, my thought is this. I have a simple little strategy here. I want to share many of the cool tools that we use at our firm at no charge. I want to share tools that are going to help keep you organized. I want to share tools with you at no charge that are going to offer best-in-class client deliverables to your client. Basically, I want to give you Kate's complete case study, something that will help you implement the 10 client deliverables and the 3 meeting process, which I will give you those as well. I'll send those to you. I'll send you my blueprint for a fully functioning financial advisory practice at no charge, and I'll give you tips on exactly what to do in the first 30 days. In other words, a starting point for you, as it were. Basically, my strategy is to add loads of value into your life at no charge, and then see if you're going to implement or not. I've got the site that I'm putting together to support this and to give you even more tools that are going to help you. But, I'm in the process of creating this for high-end advisors and those advisors who are heading in that direction. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to basically put in your name and email address on the subscription form that you'll find on this page. I want you to go ahead and enter your name and email address and hit that button and send it off to me. If you're already on my update list, it's pretty simple. I'll get a notice that you put your name in the form here, and the first installment of Kate's full case study is going to be emailed out to you right away, within a day or so, very quickly. If you are not currently on my update list, then just enter your name and email address and hit the button, and I'll set you up to get the case study in just a few days as well. I'll send you some cool videos showing you exactly what to do first. Basically, I want to give you enough information so that you can begin implementing right away. Because nothing's going to be more compelling to me than if I had a whole bunch of people like you who can give me case studies about their success stories even before I fully launch all the tools that I have in mind to help. So basically, my plan to get you implementing is to give you some great stuff right away. So put your name and email into this page if you want this full case study, and I'll get a notice and I'll send it to you right away. So good luck in implementing. Whether we work together or not, I hope what I've said on this video inspires you to move in the direction of more fully comprehensive financial services for your clients. And if you get Kate's full case study, I'll really look forward to working with you over the next few months to really ramp up your services. And good luck implementing.